quickly.
Mhm.
I mean,
Okay. Started recording. Go ahead.
yeah. So
yep.
self-organizing.
The self-organizing idea, definitely. I mean, within the teams determining what they're going to work on, at what pace, they're getting things completed and they're committing, and that's definitely not coming top down. So I think, Jonathan, that's a great point. And so everybody knows we usually share these on YouTube so people can watch them later as well. So, and also on the Meetup site, we'll usually leave a link for it. So sorry, I started a little bit late on this one for recording, but yeah, definitely, Jonathan, this is self-organizing, right? The idea here is that the project manager isn't coming in and saying, you do this, you're assigned to this one. If you have a project manager who understands how to be part of a release train, great, they can play a role, right? Because remember, the title somebody has in the organization, you can kind of think of the Scaled Agile release train as a virtual organization, right? So somebody might be a vice president of something, somebody might be a support person, they might be whatever it is. But when they come and work on the release train, they're going to play a role within this kind of virtual, kind of release train organization, regardless of what their title is, right? So this is kind of regardless of your title outside of the Scaled Agile release train. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. And we had somebody.
I mean,
Yep, go ahead.
The other principles, jumping in, have a lot to say on this, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is trust and safety. Look, you have to trust people to do their job, right? You have to feel safe that you're not going to get fired if things happen, right? Which weren't planned, right? Because the ability to pivot, the ability to reorganize, right? So I'm speaking to a mindset, not necessarily safe agile. But this mindset, which is definitely not top-down work breakdown structure, organized.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean that safety is really key. It doesn't always happen. So I was working in an organization that I will not name, one of many throughout my times in different organizations in Singapore. And I remember we had a new CIO, whatever it was, CIO come in, and she kind of came in and said, okay, we're doing a town hall. So I had everybody come into a town hall. And she said, oh, okay, so I hear a lot of people really want innovation. You guys want like the 20% time they have at Google. You want to work on different projects. And she's like, well, we're not going to really do that stuff. That's not really very important. And then she went on about how, you only have to work on what you're assigned to, et cetera, et cetera. Make sure you get those jobs done. Don't worry about all this innovation stuff. And then she goes, but I want us to be a very innovative organization, right? I want to have a lot of innovation. And she said, and I hear that they say you need to be psychologically safe, to be able to innovate. She said, anybody you don't feel psychologically safe right now in this big town hall meeting, just raise your hand. Raise your hand if you don't feel safe. Raise your hand. Now, do you think anybody raised their hand?
Well, it's the same story as that startup founder who wanted her employees in Florida to come in during a hurricane, right? Does anyone not feel safe coming in during a hurricane and everyone was quiet?
Yeah,
because she just set the frame that these hurricanes are nothing, and you can come here and you can sleep overnight if you've got a problem.
Yeah, that would have been a good idea. But yeah, not a single person raised their hand, right? Not because they felt safe, because they were afraid, they're scared, right? So like you said, that safety, it is important, but unfortunately it's not always there depending on the organization and the leadership. So sometimes you don't get the kind of safety, you make a mistake, nothing's going to happen. And I mean, especially often in Singapore work culture, if somebody makes a mistake, they're going to have a problem, right? So it's important if leadership does put in that kind of safety and make that available for people, but that truly does not always happen, right, Jonathan?
Apparently not. We're looking at the antics of Elon Musk, right? I wonder if he's running an agile organization.
I do not know. I do not know.
I don't know, but looking at the leadership style, right?
Yeah. I think he walked in the first day of the sink. So I guess he walked in the first day of the sink. So that probably says something about what he was going to do. Very good. Support person, you joined. Do you want to introduce yourself? Is that your name? Support person. Let's see. Hey everyone, I'm Ishwin. Okay, Ishwin, where are you located? Are you in Singapore? Are you at a different location? And you can speak if you want on audio, if you like. Feel free to do that if you want. Yep. Ishwin, are you experienced with Scaled Agile? Have you been using it or using it at your current organization, or what is your experience with Scaled Agile? You can feel free if you want to unmute, you can, or otherwise you can just type it. If you want to just let us know, are you, experienced? Have you been using it? Are you, on a big release train currently, or are you just kind of learning about it for the first time? I know there's a lot of Scaled Agile use in India, that's for sure. All right, well, I will let you type there. Oh, there we go. Actually, you are new to Scaled Agile. Very good. Well, you're at the right place. We like people to come in and learn and kind of just learn what Scaled Agile is about. So welcome. Very good. And so, Jonathan, are you convinced at the value of doing completing your certification exam now?
Yeah, I think, look, it's valuable once one connects within the Agile community, right? So it's about belonging, and then as part of that belonging, to enable yourself to improve, right? As to the merits of doing the SAFe qualification, well, I've already done the course, so
Yeah.
it's a minor step to.
Yeah, I mean, really, you've already completed the course. That's a big part. Really, you got to just study for the exam for a day or two and take it. So,
Yes,
right.
yeah, and and think beyond the current role or scope.
Yeah.
And also get evidence that there are people actually using.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stories, right? For even if you look on, I'm sure they're on the site here, all the customer stories, you'll see a ton of organizations that are using Scaled Agile. So, I mean, there's a ton of evidence of that. And I've used these many times over the years, right? Where I show different, companies about others in their industry that are using Scaled Agile, other people that are, doing that. So there's a lot of people who are definitely organizations that are using Scaled Agile. We see a ton of that. And I think, by the way, as a side note, or as a trainer's note for you, you're going to take the exam and you want to pass really easily, make sure to do the practice exam, probably do it at least 2 or 3 times, and make sure you pass every time, right? Once you're passing the practice exam 2 or 3 times, no problem, by at least a good 5, 7 points, you should be fine and you'll pass it without, I don't think you have any issue. All right, but make sure you don't try to take the exam without taking the practice exams, because that often cannot be a good thing. All right, so take those practice exams. All right, other questions, other comments, things people want to talk about, questions about certification, the value of it. Are people using Scaled Agile? Obviously, if you can see my screen, you can see a lot of people are using Scaled Agile across all kinds of organizations around the world. So other questions, other thoughts? I think we had over there, Vikas, did you want to ask about anything? I don't know if you've got your audio sorted out, but you can type it as well. Is there anything you wanted to kind of, ask about? And I'm sure, did we get your background? Are you using Scaled Agile now at all on your organization now, Vikas?
So yeah, my audio is working now.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
That.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
So yeah, I'm kind of using Scaled Agile day in day out. So that's not an issue. Just wanted to touch base on what are the new tools that are kind of coming and becoming popular in doing various of SAFe events, right? I know Miro Mural on the whiteboarding side, IOBIA on the PI planning conduction, but is there anything else that you feel makes it easy, right? Especially in the virtual world.
Yeah, there's actually a ton of tools. There's a lot of, I think they call them platform partners. Let me see if we see it here. So there's a ton of tools that are associated with Scaled Agile. I mean, I'll tell you that for me in implementations, I usually like to use a lot of the framework, a lot of the stuff in the area when you log in. So that I usually use quite a lot. I'll use a lot of like the downloadable like sheets and things like that. Tool wise, there's a few for the like measure and learn. So for the assessments, I haven't been using those. I really have used just the assessments you can download directly from Scaled Agile. but there are 2 or 3 tools. I have to look and see what they are now, that you can use for like the assessments to measure and grow. When you come into a new organization and you want to assess, kind of how they're doing, let them self-assess. I find those to be really valuable. So those things you can do. Like you said, I think somebody mentioned, it was Jonathan, Jira doesn't really fully support it. There are other tools that do support more so, although honestly in organizations, probably the most common tool that I see is Jira. So you kind of have to, play with it a little bit to try to get it to support a Scaled Agile. Because although I don't know, I think Jira did have a plugin now for Scaled Agile. So has anybody used that? Has anybody used Jira with Scaled Agile implementation? Okay, so that was one. I know that version 1 CollabNet, that I think has full support for Scaled Agile. I think there are quite a few other tools, but one of the things is usually the tools that fully support are a little more expensive. So sometimes it's hard to get an organization to agree to purchase all the seats for that for all the people in the organization. And Vikas, did you want to say where are you joining from, and if you're already using Scaled Agile yourself or in your organization?
Yeah, I'm joining from India, and yeah, I'm using Safe, for a long time actually. I'm a Safe program consultant. In fact,
Very
I
good.
actively train people as well.
Okay.
So just to meet up and get to know. I think I've joined one another connect as well, John. So it's always nice to connect with you.
Very good.
But yeah, I think it's just about understanding perspective and keeping up to date what's happening in the industry. Yeah.
So how do you think in terms of kind of adoption? I guess you're in India, so there's a lot of adoption there. Not sure if you're touching in the Singapore market, but I think Jonathan was kind of asking, what people are using it. What are you seeing, Vikas, in terms of people, adopting? Are you seeing a lot of organizations that are, and I would assume the answer is yes, but I'll leave it to you maybe to give your thoughts. Are you seeing a lot of adoption across the region?
Yes, to be fair, I see it being exponentially increasing, right? Especially for the last 2 year, in even after the pandemic has come in, right? I mean, it gives business a sense that they have to be agile. A lot of business had impacted, right? And they were not able to move faster, adjust faster, change their direction faster, right? Agile, be it any methodology, right? To that matter, what we call Scrum, Kanban, actually less safe, right? We're all about talking about how we can be nimble, how we can be adaptable, right? How we understand, how we design, architect in a way, right? And a lot of organizations are working on that, right? How do they can, kind of think lean in the way they implement, right? I mean, you're talking about Disney, right? I always, keep this example a lot of time with people, say, there are two way of building stuff, right? Say Disney parks, and then you have a empty holiday park, right? One is waterfallish, 3 year you keep building a park, and then you launch it, right? You are not earning anything, right? With the lean and agile way, what do we see probably is you have that empty field, right? And why don't you go ahead and you market it out, right? I mean, people come with their own tents, own things, right? Do the picnic, pay you something, right? Then you gather their feedback as well, right? What do they next want to see, right? Maybe check-in desk, check out, maybe showers, toilets, right? I mean, see, all businesses are thinking about this, that okay, where before I spend full money, do I have a way to capture, whether I'm going into the right direction or not, right? Otherwise, I may actually stop it in between rather than wasting full all the money and then finding out that it's not going to work, right? And a lot of organizations are coming up to move towards one or other agile framework, with safe becoming more popular. That's my view. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I was working with Disney, it was before Safe was really very big, but we did still use a lot of the same ideas. We go into the parks and we would do, different types of, kind of talking with different people in the parks, and we would try different concepts that we were using. We actually have the My Magic and the Magic Bands and the kind of whole digital experience that Disney started to use. So we did use a lot of those agile principles throughout everything that we were doing. And then again, like you said, in Scaled Agile, you're going to see those. A lot of design thinking is incorporated now. You're going to see a lot of obviously fast iterating and fast feedback loops. And we did all of that. So we absolutely use a lot of those ideas. And, as you said, because that's in Scaled Agile, you're going to see, that being applied. And now a lot more of the business agility part too. Has anybody tried to or seen
Has anybody tried?
the Scaled Agile at the business agility kind of level outside of IT, outside of technology?
What I have not practically seen, to be fair, because my profile is IT, but I've trained groups actually from the manufacturing world as well, right? In Ford organization, in manufacturing, right? They are also trying to go on, right? And one of the major things I think people feel about, they are feeling challenged to slice their work into smaller work, right? When we say increment of 2 weeks, right? In manufacturing, it is probably not that, right? I mean, I always say you don't have to be rigid, right? That it has to be 2 week only, because what we are saying is we have to be agile, right? Don't stuck from waterfall processes to agile processes, right? Why don't you, if you are doing some release in 1 year, if you are coming that break it down into 6 months, you are still being faster, right? I mean, first you start breaking maybe 1 year to 6 months, right? And then maybe as you get that mindset, right, then you will be able to further understand, how do I further slice the work, right? I mean, there is a difference between potential shippable, potential realizable, and potential value, right? So, I mean, all people have to understand those definitions to be able to rightly slice the work and see the value, right? May not be value to customer, but maybe value to your stakeholder to be able to see how things coming up and demo and provide feedback, right? So, I mean, the manufacturing world is also adopting a lot of agile practices nowadays. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the challenges in business agility is that, a lot of times people will view, back in again, a lot of times people will view scaled agile and they'll say, oh, okay, well, you're doing that inside of IT, right? You're doing that inside of the technology organization. But then when it comes outside of technology, outside of IT, a lot of times, it's harder to get people to kind of buy in as much. Because I think almost every scaled agile implementation I've seen has almost always come out of the technology organization. There are more case studies that are coming up now. I think we'll actually see them on the Scaled Agile site here. Give me a second. There are more case studies that are coming up now of using Scaled Agile in, let's see if we can go back here. Give me a second. Let's see if we can go back. There we go, to the main site. Okay, so we should see down here, and you guys can usually look if you want to, at the bottom of the site, they'll have the latest articles, what's new and safe. So I think that there's quite a few additional business agility experience reports now that they're creating. And these actually talk more about how Scaled Agile is being used outside of technology. But I think it's still really a newer area. So they had Agile risk management, data-driven company, enterprise agile transformation, a large insurance company. And I think they had one from marketing, unleashing marketing's potential of agile marketing inside of marketing release train. So that's interesting. So we are seeing some more that are using Scaled Agile outside of technology, which is traditionally where it is. But I would say, at least for me, overwhelmingly, I usually see it, being driven out of technology. So if anybody else has seen that outside of technology, I'm curious to see that. I think business agility is an evolving area, but I haven't seen as much of that.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously other functions, marketing, finance, HR, if we put it into functional, I mean, they're going to be focusing on their stakeholders. So design thinking would have a very major part in most other business units, right? And also, other training organizations like IC Agile is making an effort to focus on the business, right? So IC Agile doesn't seem to have a framework, but they do have a lot of communications, and they hire their instructors to get people to come around to agility. So for Scaled Agile, I don't know. I guess it's where they focus, where their history is, and where they focus.
Yep, absolutely. So I think that's true. I mean, IC Agile, I know I've actually done, training for them as well. And then there are other, organizations as well that are kind of focused more on business agility, and Business Agility Institute and others who do spend more time focused there. So yeah, I think those are really good points as well. Any others who've really experienced kind of outside of technology using Scaled Agile or Agile in general? even if it's not
Yeah,
scaled
so
agile?
value training. So that I think the value institute or something, their business is to go and do models and help businesses understand how they're generating value to the customer. So I think that's covered in parts of the Scaled Agile Framework, portfolio management, right?
Yep.
So that would be another area. I mean, it's just Scaled Agile is so huge. Obviously,
Yep.
there's going to be other organizations that just take a subset of it and deep dive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely happens. I think it's very hard. I mean, if we look at the big picture, it is very hard for an organization kind of to fully implement, across all of the areas of their business scaled agile. So they will usually take one area, and then start there. Maybe they'll start with essential safe. They'll start with the one release train. They'll start with some of the business agility ideas, and then they build from there. And that really makes sense. We were talking about this a little earlier. I think it was Avant. We were talking about kind of the idea of shuhari. If you guys know that, it comes from Aikido, and the idea is basically that you start with shu, which is basically you just learn the basic rule. And Scaled Agile is really good for kind of teaching you agility and lean thinking and flow principles in the organization. And then you have ha, which is more you start to break and adapt the rule, right? Essentially came like Bruce Lee, who, adapted, and then in re, you kind of become a master where you kind of creating your own rule. You're working from, your own knowledge base, and you're developing. So I think that shu is a very good place. You can start with Scaled Agile. Over time, organizations are going to start to make and adapt their own flavors of things. And they shouldn't always continue to be like, we always do these 5 things exactly this way. Over time, these things should evolve in the organization, right? As it becomes more a part of the organization's DNA. So great starting point. And you may find organizations that have adapted to the business agility. Like you said, design thinking is an area that we're going to see some of the lean principles. So they definitely are going to maybe take up different parts, not necessarily all at once though, because as you said, it is really overwhelming when you try to do everything at once, because there's just a lot that's part of Scaled Agile, right?
Hey, John,
Yeah.
can you tell me about some agile metrics that need to be focused on?
Is that Ishwin?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So you said your question is, what are there some agile methods that need to be focused on?
yes,
So if you're kind of asking in terms of, so Scaled Agile uses a combination. You can either use Scrum there, or you can use Kanban, right? So, those are going to be the methods you're going to use at a team level. In the portfolio level, you're going to be using lean flow, which is also really a Kanban as well. But the idea of lean flow, right? So this idea of things flowing, values flowing, and value stream mapping, that's going to be at both the portfolio level, also at the large solutions and the release train. You have this idea of always having value flowing through the organization. That's really key. Jonathan brought up design thinking, and this is something like at Disney, we use a lot of design thinking. We use a lot of customer centricity, focusing on the customer, going through the parks, talking to people about what they wanted, what they liked, what they didn't like. So you, of course, have many methods. If you're at a technology team level, you're almost definitely going to be either using Scrum or Kanban, right? If you're working more with customers, maybe the design thinking and customer centricity, which are definitely agile related areas. And then if you're working in a portfolio or a PMO or a project management office, very definitely the lean thinking, the lean portfolio.
John, I was asking about the metrics, not methods.
Oh, metrics. Sorry. All right. Well, hopefully that was useful. Let's talk about the metrics. So you can kind of find those up here, right? So for the metrics, and these are what we were talking about these earlier. I like to use these, like when I go in a new organization, often I'll use and download some of these. You can just download these and it'll actually download for you a whole kind of Excel worksheet that you can use. I did say there are some tools you can purchase as well that implement these for SAFe. They might have it here somewhere, but I like to use these metrics. One of the ones is a business agility assessment. One that I use a lot. Let's see if we can find a team and technical agility. I use that assessment quite a lot. It looks at how the team is delivering in terms of organization, the technology practices, and how they're doing as far as that goes. So those are really good. Another one I like, it often is very good in terms of metrics, is for kind of the project level, the portfolio level. You can see some of them here. So things like, and there'll be a whole list of them, so we can take a look in there. I do not want to download it all now. You're going to find that there are a lot of metrics that you can actually use. Let's say you're working with a PMO, you're working with a project organization. They like these metrics. Just be careful not to get so tied into them that they kind of lose the forest for the trees, right? They need to make sure that they're really delivering value. The flow of value is still going, but a lot of the metrics that they have here at each level, I really like a lot. Let's see if it actually shows the details of it. I don't want to download everything, so let me see if it's going to pull it up here. Hold on. Do you use that measure and grow? Have you gone to that assessment tab before, Ishwan? Looks like it's not loading. Is it loading? Here we go.
John, your voice is breaking. Actually, I'm facing some network issues.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I was saying that the ones for the assessments that you can do, like at the portfolio level, there are certain ones that you can use. Actually, looking at what we have. Okay, so they actually put it onto the worksheet here as well. I like to use these like when I'm working with a project management office, when I'm working with executives. It gives them, so we'll look at like, you know, how many features are being delivered. We'll look at, you know, what is the flow. We look at, you know, are there certain epics or, you know, product functionality that's being delivered. So those types of things are really good. They're really good ways to measure. Looks like it just opened. They're really good ways to measure. Are you able to hear me now, Ishwan?
Another way.
Go ahead.
John, if I add my 2 cents as well,
Yeah,
maybe from the big picture on the spanning palette, on the big picture on the right side, right, there is a metrics thing, right? Maybe if we can navigate there, you know, would be down, yeah, scroll down maybe, yeah. So this one metrics, right side, far right, the last one in the spanning palette. Yeah, this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Metrics, the flow one, and
yeah, that is right. In fact, I think some of the ones, yeah. So you have the flow ones. I want to see if there's actually some that I really like to use that might be in here. See if they're here. Was there anything else you wanted to point out in particular, Vikas? There's the business agility one, the team and technical agility. We should have some of the metrics here as well.
Yeah, I mean, see, to be fair, you know, my thinking always is, and in fact, I was working with a coach, and I would be honored to say, you know, the simple thinking is a lot of time we say agile, and we just stick ourselves to some, you know, common metrics, right? One of the key things that we have to think is, are our metrics agile as well, right? Something that we are measuring today, we may not need to measure tomorrow, right? Because that may not be useful, right? So, you know, while we pick a metrics, my view is that we only pick something that help us to make a decision, right? I mean, if seeing that if we cannot make any decision, right, then probably this is not a good thing to measure, right? I'll give you an example. Sometime a lot of people on the content blogging sites, etc., they track on how many likes they have got on a post, something, right? But we know that you know, these likes and all are being manipulated nowadays, being purchased nowadays, right? You know, someone maybe you know, coming to your site, e-commerce site, and leaving within 2 minutes, right? You just kind of track how many minute person spent you know, there on your site. But if the person spent, let's say, 10 minutes instead of 2, but still do not buy anything, then what is the point of measuring, right?
Yep.
So my view, what I was trying to point out is, a lot of time we focus on velocity, right? Velocity metrics and all that, right? What we have also to think of, as you were saying rightly, the flow metrics, right? I mean, how quickly we are getting something started to done, right? How quickly we know the lead time of something gets reduced, right? All this lean manufacturing principle, right? And then, as you rightly you know, put it here, the AA, RRR metrics, right? Which is acquisition, revenue, retention, referrals. You know, how do we know what KPI work for us to plan a better approach, right? And you know, there may be 1,000, 5,000 of metrics that exist, but we don't need to. We have to pick that gonna help us to make a decision, right? Whether to replan, whether to add more people, whether to remove people, whether to change the structure. But anything that we capture should help us to make a decision as an organization, right? So that's all the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, as you said rightly, because you often are going to be fluid with these. You're not always going to stick to the same metrics for, you know, every month, every PI, every year. You always have, you might need to change them as you go, and be fluid and be agile, right? Where you actually have some flexibility, because some metrics might be meaningful to you early on, and maybe later on they don't mean so much to you anymore. So you need to keep, and also don't become a prisoner to metrics, right? Because what often happens is people spend so much time focused on them, they don't think about, is this a good product? You know, are people using it? Like you kind of talked about there. Are people really interested in what we're producing? Are people buying it? So there are other things that you need to think about also outside of kind of some of the metrics that you'll find, but there are lots of excellent metrics that you can use here. Ishwan, does that answer some of what you were asking about?
Yeah, John, thank you.
Okay, and there's a couple good locations there. One that Vikas pointed out as well. So you got the metrics section, the spanning palette on the right of the big picture down there. And then also you have the measure and grow up in the upper right as well, where you can download a lot of that stuff and use those different ones with your client, with your team that you're working with. All right, other questions or thoughts or things you guys want to talk about? Questions about developments in Scaled Agile? I would definitely say, Jonathan, there are quite a lot of people throughout the region that are using it. But again, I think if we look at like Singapore local level, it's really more, you know, individuals who are more being trained. But if we look at multinationals, we are seeing a lot throughout the region, though, growing.
Hi, John.
Hi.
This is Afan again.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, John. When I have had the project, also I have experience with our finance team, because you know, finance team they have budgeting and they have financial cycle that it is very waterfall approach, right? But when we apply agile project, and then they have the waterfall approach for the finance cycle, how we have also hard time to match each other, and then we need to explain up to the leadership team because of that gap. So eventually we have the compromise about that situation. But do you have any thought on that, or any view on that, on how we should engage our finance function team?
So you can actually see at the top, let's do the portfolio safe view here. You're going to see the lean budgets. You see the lean budgets there, and you kind of allocate across different epics, which are going to be implemented by the release trains. There's some really good, in fact, we can probably click into this. There's some really good guidance for you there, where you can kind of learn about how to address finance. We actually did a session some time ago. If you look on my YouTube channel, Elizabeth, I'm not sure if you have it. I actually have one about Agile Finance in there. So maybe I'll see if I can give you a link to that. But you can really address with the finance teams how they're budgeting. You know, ideally, you'd like to do it, you know, for every PI, have them allocate so that the teams can allocate across the different features and, you know, and stories that they're working on. Not every organization has lean budgets like this, though. So you may have to kind of work from more of a traditional project funding model and try to see if you can adapt it. So what you're doing for Scaled Agile, often you might want to see if you can get things funded at a PI level, right? So that's kind of like a quarterly level, and then see if you can then implement your release train using those budgets at the PI level, right? So let me see if I can find that. I'm gonna stop my share for a second and then see if I can find, I actually did a couple of videos that I think you'll find useful on that topic. So let me see if I can find those while I'm looking. Does that answer your question on that? Or do you have kind of more about Avant? Let me see if I can find it under, I had a couple of videos on the Agile Finance topic there. Hold on. Avant, did you have more specifically on it?
Yeah, I understand with your view, but that is the ideal situation, right? But the situation, in fact, some like our organization is still doesn't have that applied in the finance team.
Yeah, you're right. That's common. A lot of organizations, one of the last places that really take up any kind of agile ideas is finance. They're very used to the traditional, right? So a lot of times they really don't want to use the agile kind of ideas for finance. Like, we don't really want to use that. And like I said, in that case, you're going to have to adapt to, because they're giving you the money. So you're going to have to adapt to the funding model they use. If they do as a project and say, okay, look, we're going to treat each one of the PIs as a project, or we're going to treat the next 2 PIs as a project, and they'll have to fund that. So even though it would be ideal if they actually, here's one of them. It would be ideal if they did the Scaled Agile style of funding, where they kind of funded the value stream. Like you said, a lot of organizations don't do that, right? So they're not funding at that level. And if they are not funding at that level, what you really need to do then is you're going to have to adapt to their funding model. And maybe in the future, they might change and start using more of an agile approach or a value stream kind of, funding the value stream, funding the release trains, but that's not often going to happen to start with. There's one of the videos. That's the Agile Finance one. There's also one on Scaled Agile Finance, if I can find it. So you shouldn't be stopped by the fact that finance is not using kind of an agile budgeting. Often they're not going to be, and obviously you need the money to keep your project going, right? So if they have a funding model, say, okay, you know what, you've got a project, let's assign that to the next PI, the next 2 PIs, and then you might have to get funding for the next PI in the same way, instead of trying to get all the agile financing running in the finance group when it's not going to start that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Got you.
Okay, I'll just other comments on that. I know we have a lot of people kind of dropped off because we're getting at the end of kind of the lunch period here, so people probably have to get back to other things. But I put into the comments one of the videos, so if you want to copy that one. That one talks about agile finance, and I actually had another one about Scaled Agile Finance. I'm just looking to see if I can find that. So those are kind of interesting, just kind of looking at the way that finance works. Here's another one. This is Scaled Agile CapEx and OpEx, kind of speaking the language of your finance team. There we go. Agile portfolio, CapEx, and OpEx. Okay, so you can check those ones out. See what your thoughts are, if that kind of helps address it for you too, Avant. Let me see if there might be one more in here. It's there, I'm not sure. Okay, while I'm looking for that, any other thoughts, any other questions, anything else that people want to talk about as we kind of round out the kind of the lunch period here? All right, cool. Elizabeth, any last comments on your side?
Not so much, but it was a good session. Yeah, for the ones who have joined and the ones remaining, we are thankful and grateful. So we have meetups every month. So just be on the lookout for that. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so Avant, do you see the 2 links that I gave you in the chat there?
Yeah.
Check those out. I think I have a few more that are probably linked at the bottom of that playlist, but that will give you some ideas on agile finance, agile project budgeting. I think there's one on agile project budgeting as well. So I did a whole series on this, and I think that'll probably help you as you talk to your finance team.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's see if I can find, I think there's one more here. I'm going to take one more shot at finding it. If I don't, you can message me or get me on LinkedIn as well. Oh, safe agile contracts. You may want to look at that as well. I'm not sure if that's of use to you, but you may want to look at that also. So I'll include that here as well. Okay, that's another one that you may find interesting. Great. Okay, anything else before we wrap up, everyone?
John, can you tell me about the role of RT?
Sure, the RTE. Yeah, let me pull up the big picture again, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And Avant, you can copy those if you like from the chat. Let me go back to the big picture and I'll share my screen. Ishwan. Okay, so the RTE, there we go. Right, really going to be working with your release train. They're basically the Scrum Master. We call them the Uber Scrum Master sometimes. Not the ride sharing, but Uber like being a super Scrum Master for the whole release train, right? So what a Scrum Master does for one team is basically what the RTE is going to do for the entire release train. They're going to make sure that all the Scrum Masters, right, everybody's coordinated, everybody's aligned, every iteration that they're delivering something. They're going to prepare everything as far as PI planning. They're going to help to make sure everybody's ready, the executives and the business owners and product management has all their features prioritized. They're going to do prep sessions with them. They're going to help with the demos, and they're going to do the inspect and adapt sessions to review what's really working well, kind of our release train level retrospective, right? They're going to do all of that. And they're going to really be your Scrum Master at the whole release train or program level. Now we call it a central level, right? So that is the role of the RTE. Sometimes project managers are really good in that role if they have a servant leadership mindset, but they really have to have that servant leadership mindset to be a good release train engineer. And also people who've been Scrum Masters before for multiple teams, that might also be someone to be good for that kind of a role. Does that answer your question, Ishwan? Do you have more on that one that you'd like to know?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, very good. Good. So if you guys have more questions, other things, you can, of course, check out, I think Elizabeth put in some of the links for our website. My company does a lot of coaching on different things for Scaled Agile. You can also take a look at some of the videos on that YouTube channel. And of course, take a look at the Scaled Agile site, the big picture, everything going on there as well. Happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. Let me stop sharing. So if anybody wants to connect on LinkedIn, you want to ask questions, you want to ping me, whatever it is, feel free to do that. Let me give my LinkedIn profile here. Hold on a second. I'm going to just copy that and put it in the chat. Feel free to connect if you want. Also reach out to Elizabeth on my team, and she's also happy to help you guys out. If you have different things you want to talk about between our meetings and are interested or just need some help with your Scaled Agile implementations, just reach out to us and happy to talk to you about it. Okay. Anything else before we wrap up? So my LinkedIn is there in the chat as well. Okay, great. All right. Anything else? Other questions or anything else before we kind of wrap it on up? Great. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you next month. I think unless we have a winter break, but otherwise we will be continuing every month, as Elizabeth said, and reach out to us and anytime you need support with the Scaled Agile engagement project, training, whatever you're doing, happy to help and support you as well. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you very much, John.
All right.
Thank you very much. Valuable session.
Thank you, John. Nice to meet you.
Nice to you. Bye.